Welcome to Retiring Well. I'm your host, Michael Reese. We have a great show lined up for you this week. This week we're talking about strategic planning. Now, I know that sounds kind of fancy, but this is important. This is really important when it comes to your retirement. And the best way to share why it's important to you is to tell you a little bit about my grandparents. So my two grandparents on my father's side, Wes and Carol, they were school teachers in Lansing, Michigan. Now, not big spenders, just your average, couple of school teachers. And they had a very simple dream for their retirement. They wanted to buy a cottage on a lake in northern Michigan. That's what they wanted to do. They would buy the cottage, they would live there in the summertime. The idea is that the family would come there, the children and grandchildren would be there, everybody would come, like the family enclave, if you will. So what my grandfather did to make this happen, his plan was that what he would do is he would save up some money and then go buy some dividend-paying stocks, like large company stocks that pay dividends. They'd save up some more money, buy some more stocks. Save up some more money, buy some more stocks. And by the time that they retired, which was January 1st in 1971, my grandfather had accumulated a little more than $300,000. Now, by the way, I think $300,000 is a lot of money today, but back then, I did the math. In today's dollars, that's like $1.5 million in today's dollars. It's like retiring today with $1.5 million. And remember, they weren't big spenders, but what they did is they had the money. So they bought that cottage, nothing big, but they bought that cottage on the lake, and off we went. Now, I'm happy to announce that as one of the grandchildren, I, of course, was a beneficiary. I think on the TV beside me, you're now seeing a picture of what that looked like. And if you had to guess which one I was, I'm sure a lot of you might be looking at a picture thinking, oh, he's the kid on the left with the fish. Or, no, I'm the one with the orange and yellow and brown horizontal striped bathing suit. If that's not proof that that picture was taken in the 70s, I don't know what is. But anyway, to go back to my grandparents, everything was going well until one day in the late 70s. Well, I don't know if it was 78, 79. My parents came to us children and they said, come on kids, we're going to the cottage for the last time. Well, what were my parents talking about? Well, it turned out that Grandma and Grandpa were running out of money. They were running out of money and they had to sell the cottage to make ends meet. Now think about that. Think about that. They retired with the equivalent, today's dollars, $1.5 million. Not big spenders. It's not like they were frugal, but they were not big spenders. Yet somehow they ran out of money. Well, the reason I tell you this story is very simple. What happened to my grandparents, you may be doing something similar as what they did. This might be what they did, it might be what you're doing. And you don't want to make the same mistake that they made. So it's going to be a great show. We're going to talk about what they did wrong and how to fix it so that you don't do the same thing. Grab a pen and paper, grab a cup of coffee. Retiring Well starts right here, right now.
Retiring Well with Michael Reese, helping you make smart decisions with your money so you can live a better life. Today is the day you can take back control of your money. Retiring Well with Michael Reese, where we believe your best is yet to come.
All right, I shared the story with you of my grandparents and how they retired with the equivalent of $1.5 million in today's money, and yet somehow they managed to lose it all. Why? What happened? Well, what happened to them is what happens to millions of Americans today. And maybe you are making the same mistake that my grandparents made, and you don't even realize it. And here's what it is. It has to do with this concept of goals, strategies, and tools. Now, what am I talking about? Financial tools There's a lot of places we can put money. My grandfather had one place that he put all of his money. Do you remember what it was? Yeah, it was large company, dividend-paying stock. Right? Large company, dividend-paying stock. That's where all of his money was. And you know what? That worked really well when he was growing his portfolio. Right? He's growing his portfolio. If you think about it, stock, there's a strategy, there's a financial strategy that works with stocks. It's called growth. Right? People want to grow their portfolio. You invest in stocks. Stocks are growth tools. So that connects. And typically, if you have a goal, your goal might be, hey, I want to grow a portfolio. Okay, great. I've got a goal. It's building a portfolio, building up savings. I'm using a strategy called a growth strategy, and my tool is a stock. It's large company stocks. That's what my grandfather did, right? But here's the problem. The problem is, where was his focus in all of this? Was my grandfather's focus thinking over here, I got to build, or was it really, I love dividend-paying stocks? And that's where his focus was. And here's how it cost him. And, by the way, here's how it might cost you if you're not careful, because we see people doing the same things, and here's what I mean. There's a lot of tools out there, aren't there? You can invest in stocks. You can invest in bonds. You can invest in mutual funds or exchange-traded funds. You can invest in annuities. You can invest in real estate. You can invest in options and futures. And there's all kinds of tools out there. There's a ton of them. Ton of tools. And the mutual fund industry is brilliant. They are brilliant. Because here's what they did. They sell mutual funds. That's what they sell. They sell one thing, mutual funds. The industry does. And a long time ago, they said, you know, we could sell more mutual funds if we included a strategy, and they called that strategy asset allocation. Y'all heard of that, right? And what they figured out is they said, you know, if we were to, instead of selling the tool, what if we sold the strategy? We'll sell asset allocation. And the idea is, hey, you get a pretty pie chart. And guess what do you fill each of those pieces of the pie chart with? Yeah, some mutual fund, right? But what are they really doing? They're still selling, all they're doing is focusing on the tool. They say, hey, we're trying to sell mutual funds. We want you to buy mutual funds. And maybe some different ones, maybe some stock ones, maybe some bond ones. We just want you to buy mutual funds. That's all we want. And we're going to use this cool idea. Asset allocation is a strategy. The problem that people have, the problem my grandfather had, the problem that you might have is this. When my grandfather retired, when he retired, where should his focus have been? Should he have been focused on owning dividend-paying stocks? Or maybe do you think he should have been focused on his goals? Because think about this, once he retired, the goals change. It's not just about building a portfolio anymore, is it? In fact, the goals might be, wait a minute, I've already built the portfolio, now what do I need to do? I need to protect my portfolio. I need an income goal. I need to generate some retirement income. That's a goal. The family cottage, I've got that. I got to make sure I keep that thing for my family. Right? These are all different goals. Yet, what did my grandfather do with his dividend-paying stocks? Nothing. He kept them. He didn't change a thing. He didn't change one thing. His goals changed, but his focus was on the tools, and the tools didn't change. Now, why do I say you might learn from this? Okay, why might you learn? Because here's the thing. People just like you come into the office every single day, and they bring us their portfolios. And maybe they're retired and they're 65 or 70 years old. Maybe they're getting close to retirement. And they're in their late 50s or early 60s. And they come to us and they say, here's our portfolio. You know, would you give us a second opinion? And you know what we find? There is a huge disconnect along this way because you know what? Their goals have been changing, but the portfolio has not. Your goals, you might be just like these people, you might be just like my grandparents. Your goal historically has been build a portfolio. That's been your goal. And so if that's your goal, it makes sense to have a growth strategy, which means you should have certain growth tools, right? It makes sense. But as we get closer to retirement, suddenly we want to protect money more. We might need income. We might have cottages or travel or whatever your goals are. And you might need different strategies other than growth. For example, you might need an income strategy. You might need a tax strategy. You might need you might need an inflation strategy, right? You need a lot of different strategies than just, I'm trying to grow my portfolio. And when that occurs, you have all these different goals, you need different strategies, it only makes sense that you alter what's going on over here. You know, I say it all the time, retirement is a significant change in life. If this is significant changes happen over here, guess what? You got to be making significant changes all along the way. Don't be like my grandfather. Be smart, make the right changes, and you will end up successful with your retirement.
Will your retirement vision be your retirement reality? Centennial Wealth Advisory invites you to an eye-opening and exciting event packed with up-to-date, valuable, and important information. Join us for a free presentation with complimentary gourmet dinner and find out what you're missing on these vital topics. What is the suitability versus fiduciary standard of care in the financial services industry? What are the biggest tax traps? What are the hidden costs in mutual funds? Why is getting a second opinion the most important financial decision of your life? And much more. Thursday, August 10th at the Grand Traverse Resort in Acme. Presentations start at 6 p.m. and are free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow. But seating is limited and fills quickly. Call 888-608-5825 or visit sen-wealth.com to reserve your seats today. There is no cost and no obligation. Don't miss this important presentation, making your retirement vision a reality. Call 888-608-5825 today.
Hi, I'm here with Larry Flynn. He's one of the financial advisors at Centennial Wealth. And, you know, Larry, a lot of folks, as they're watching the show, you know, we're asking them to give us a call. Come on in and visit with you and the other guys here at the firm. And I'm sure they're wondering, well, gosh, if I call, you know, what's going to happen? What's that like? I'm sure there's some uncertainty out there. What happens when somebody calls to come visit with you and the guys?
Well, the first thing happens, Mike, is if they make a call, we have somebody from our office reach out to them and basically try to spend about 10-15 minutes with them on the phone just to try to get to understand, you know, what are they trying to accomplish, what do they want to expect when they come in to visit with us.
Okay, like what kind of questions they have, what they're trying to, yeah, and I'm sure a lot of folks, they're just trying to get maybe a second set of eyes or a second opinion on things, right?
That's right.
So they call up, someone reaches out, they get some information so that, so I guess essentially you can be better prepared for them when they come in, right?
Well, exactly. Before we want to meet with them, a lot of these people want a risk analysis, they want a fee analysis, they really want, again, that second opinion on what they have. So we might ask them to send some information ahead of time so we can make that first meeting very productive.
Well, of course, because, you know, we don't want to waste their time, and, you know, you want to make the best use of your time. So maybe by being prepared, sure, right, you can make for a good meeting. So here we are. They come on into the office. I know Pat meets them up front usually, or maybe they're in Petoskey or Gaylord. What kind of things are you talking about? What types of analyses are you usually doing for people? You know, what kind of areas are people finding these conversations to be of greatest value?
Well, Mike, the first thing we do when we sit down with somebody is we really want to know what their story is, you know, where they came from, what they're trying to accomplish, you know, what are their dreams now that they're either nearing retirement or getting in retirement. Right. These are important before we even get into any other discussions, because we want to know where they're coming from.
Well, yeah, you got to know where they're from and what they're trying to get to before you mess around with any planning, right?
That's right.
So once you get through that, what are some of the things that you find yourselves typically talking about with the folks that come visit?
Well, the most important conversation, of course, is, how do they feel about investing in the first place? Before we even talk about anything, how much risk are they willing to live with? How much are they willing to lose in just a given year? We saw so many people, didn't we, after '08? They had that conversation with the advisor. They put them in a conservative portfolio, and the people lost 30–40% and had no clue they were taking that kind of risk on. We're not going to let that happen.
So basically, you're trying to help learn about their situation, learn what they're trying to accomplish, give them a full analysis to make sure that they're on target, and if they're not, I'm assuming you give them ways that they could fix things.
That's right.
All right, fantastic. So folks, there you have it. Sounds like a pretty comfortable meeting to me. Any arm twisting going on there, Larry?
No arm twisting.
Of course not. I didn't think there was. Again, if you want to visit with the guys, just pick up the phone. The number's on the screen. We'd love to see you in the office. Love to see if we can help you out. All right, we're back. So in Chalk Talk a few minutes ago, you saw the mistakes that my grandparents made. They were focusing on tools and not on strategies. And we talked about how for a lot of people, you might be just like that. It's very common that people, just, everyday people, just like you and I, we think about the tools and not the strategies. What I want to do now is I want you to turn your thinking a little bit to say, a football game, how about that? Or a basketball game, or some type of sporting activity. And think about a game where there's a halftime. So imagine that you're the coach of a football team. The first half, you have some ups and downs, but you enter halftime and you are up by 35 points. 35 points at halftime. You're way ahead of the game. I mean, everybody's in there, everybody's excited. You feel great. Everything's good. Now, what do you do as the coach? Do you just sit there and rest on your laurels? No, that's not what you do. The game's not over yet, is it? So what do you have to do? You say, okay, well, let's assess and identify what happened in the first half. But more importantly, we have one goal for the second half. Just one goal, and that's to win the game. You got to win the game. And so what you do as the coach is typically you say, okay, we evaluate the first half, what's working, what's not, but then you make plans for the second half. You change your plans in a way so that it gives you the greatest probability of winning the game. Right? I mean, that makes sense. They do that every weekend during football season. Every coach does that. Now, why do I bring this up? Why am I bringing this up? Retirement, the day you retire, it's kind of like halftime. And actually, halftime starts a couple years before you retire. And it extends to maybe a couple years after retirement. But there's that zone right around retirement, 2-3 years before, 2-3 years after, where it's halftime. And what you should be doing, what my grandfather should have been doing, is taking a step back and really saying, okay, what have we done so far that's worked really well? We're way ahead going into retirement. We're sitting pretty good here. Now, what do we need to do in the second half? In this retirement analogy, the second half is retirement. What do we need to do in the second half during retirement to give you the greatest probability of success? The greatest probability of winning the game. Or said another way, the greatest probability that your money's going to last, that you'll be able to do what you want to do when you want to do it, that you'll be able to travel or play golf and tennis or spend time with grandchildren, whatever it is that's important to you. That's winning the game. Retirement, 2-3 years before, 2-3 years after, that's halftime. That's halftime. That's the time when you need to take a step back and assess and say, all right, how are we doing here? And more importantly, what do we need to do in the second half to make sure we have the greatest probability of success? Make sense? Now, why do I bring this up? It's really simple. We've already talked about it on the show, but this is so important it bears repeating. It is natural. I mean, Wall Street, individuals, whether you manage your money yourself or whether you've got some advisor manage it, you've got to be asking yourself the question. Retirement, the second half, represents a substantial, significant change in life. It's fundamental change. Did your portfolio fundamentally change when you retired? Or if you're within a couple years of retirement, has your advisor talked to you already about saying, hey, you're getting close to retirement, it's time to fundamentally change how you're managing your money? Have you had that conversation? And by the way, no, it's not your responsibility to ask them about it. If you're working with an advisor, you're paying them to be an advisor. It's their job to come to you and say, hey Joe, hey Mary, guess what? I know you're going to retire in a couple years. Time to really fundamentally look at changing your portfolio to reflect that fundamental shift in your life. It's halftime. Let's make those shifts. Okay, have you had those conversations? Have you had them? Well, if you're like most people, whether you have an advisor or not, you have not had those conversations. You're not looking at shifting portfolios to reflect those changes. I think in many respects, one of the most important reasons, one of the best things that will happen to you as a result of just calling us and giving us the opportunity to just give you a second set of eyes, giving you a second opinion on what you're doing, is it gives you the opportunity to have someone who works with retirees, and that's all we do. We help people who are retired or nearing retirement. That's all we do. Gives you the chance to work with someone who specializes in that environment, to give you that second set of eyes to see if you need to make some of those fundamental changes.
Your grandchildren are precious to you. They are your life. This is your time to have that special relationship. Taking care of yourself is taking care of them. Centennial Wealth Advisory is offering a free, no-obligation retirement review to make sure you don't run out of money during your retirement. Centennial Wealth Advisory. Your best is yet to come.
Will your retirement vision be your retirement reality? Centennial Wealth Advisory invites you to an eye-opening and exciting event packed with up-to-date, valuable, and important information. Join us for a free presentation with complimentary gourmet dinner and find out what you're missing on these vital topics. What is the suitability versus fiduciary standard of care in the financial services industry? What are the biggest tax traps? What are the hidden costs in mutual funds? Why is getting a second opinion the most important financial decision of your life? And much more. Thursday, August 10th at the Grand Traverse Resort in Acme. Presentations start at 6 p.m. and are free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow. But seating is limited and fills quickly. Call 888-608-5825 or visit sen-wealth.com to reserve your seats today. There is no cost and no obligation. Don't miss this important presentation, making your retirement vision a reality. Call 888-608-5825 today.
Well, I'm here with Art Canfield, one of the financial advisors at Centennial Wealth Advisory. Thanks for being here, Art.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So, as you know, this week shared the story of my grandparents and their story, what went wrong, why it went wrong, how so many people are still potentially doing the same thing. Again, people watch a show, they call, they come visit with you. I'm sure you've seen these types of things happen as well. Do you have any stories where that's happened? Anything recently?
Yeah, I do, Mike. Yeah, I just sat down with this great couple. They had called in from the television show and just kind of wanted a second opinion, second set of eyes on that. They had sent their statements in advance, and we had a chance to run that analysis. I walked through with them what their goals were. What do you guys want to do in retirement?
Oh, sure.
Their biggest thing to them was they wanted to protect what they had because it was really important to make a difference in their grandkids' lives. That's what their whole retirement was about. Travel, baseball, hockey, all that sort of stuff. They wanted to be there nonstop for them. So they needed a little extra income to do that. And so when I walked through those goal strategies and tools, I asked the questions. They had a whole portfolio, just under $1 million, of all mutual funds. Okay?
All mutual funds.
All mutual funds, 100% mutual funds. And, asked them, well, why do you have these? What is the purpose of these? What do you think their answer was?
Well, I'm guessing that, maybe growth, protection, I don't know what, diversification?
Right. They couldn't answer the question. All they could say, well, that's what my current advisor recommended to me.
Okay, so I wasn't as good at answering the question there.
I wish you were, right? That would have made more sense. And when we got to the end of that, and then we started talking about strategies. how are you doing that? Well, we've never talked about that before. We just talk about my mutual funds and how they're performing.
Just talk about the tools.
Talk about the
It's
tools.
all they focus on the tools.
And it's not just that. I feel like we hear this story over and over again of there's so much focus on the investment, the tool that somebody is in, that so much else gets lost in the process.
So what's happening here, from the sounds of things, these folks come in, and by the way, as you're watching this, how many of you are very focused on your grandchildren, just like these folks? I know who my parents love, and it's not me, it's the children, the grandchildren. Right? It seems like.
Same here.
Anyway, my point is, so here they were, they had all of these mutual funds, didn't have any kind of strategy going on, right? And it's almost like here's a basket of funds, put your money here.
Yep. They had no idea what they had, no idea why they had it, and what the advantages and disadvantages were of those tools they had.
Would you say that that's a common experience? Do you see that pretty often?
Unfortunately, we do. And
Yeah,
we really do.
It doesn't surprise me. Well, Art, we really appreciate you being here today. Our time's running a little short. Folks, by the way, are you just like that or very similar to that? You just have a collection of funds and you're not really sure what the strategies are or really how they connect with your goals? That's unfortunately very common. If that's you, just pick up the phone, give us a shout. We'd love to sit down with you and help you put together strategies that match your goals. And with that, we've got to wrap up this week. Hope you enjoyed this week's show. You remember, you only want to retire once. Let's make sure you do it right the first time. We'll see you next week.